Shalom Aleichem. That's the Jewish way of saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm a very proud Jew, but I must say the Muslims did a lot better with theirs than we did with ours. There's more soul to it. It's truly an honor to be here and to be invited to speak and to give a few words about Dr. Hassan Hathout. I must admit that I have known Dr. Hassan for only the last few moments of his extraordinary life. I had the pleasure of hearing him speak at the annual Omar Foundation dinners these past few years, and each time I grew to love him more because he embodied the meaning of love, a deep and abiding respect for the other, whomever she or he may be, for the simple reason that everyone, every single individual, is a creature of God. Now, you may be surprised to hear that Dr. Hassan's special quality actually epitomizes an argument between two of the greatest sages of the Talmud. And I hope you're wondering how abiding love can epitomize an argument. The argument reflects the core of Dr. Hassan's personal message. And keep in mind, by the way, that Jews, like Muslims, like to argue. The argument was between the great Rabbi Akiva and another rabbi named Ben Azai. One day, as they were reading the Torah, and they happened across an important verse, the golden rule of the Torah, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Rabbi Akiva said, Ze klal gadol b'Torah. This is the greatest lesson of the Torah. But when his colleague, Rabbi Ben Azai, heard this, he said, there is a greater lesson even than this. And then he cited chapter 5 of the book of Genesis. This is the record of the generations of Adam. On the day that God created humanity in the likeness of God. Now you might ask, how can this statement trump the golden rule? And what does the likeness of God even mean? You know, philosophers and theologians have probably kept the ink industry in business for many, many generations simply through their intense consideration of this issue. What could possibly be meant by humanity being created in the likeness of God? They studied and analyzed and probed the question from all directions, and they concluded that God has no form and therefore no likeness to anything else in the universe. So the verse from the Torah actually poses a significant problem because it seems to go against the greatest thinking of the greatest philosophers and theologians. Now, in fact, the Quran actually anticipates the problem in a chapter called Ashura, the Consultation, where it teaches, you'll excuse me if I don't pronounce everything perfectly, I ask your forgiveness. Laisa kamithlihi shay'un. There is nothing like him. There can be no likeness to God. Nothing can possibly be compared to God. So we might therefore conclude that Rabbi Akiva must have been right when he said that the greatest rule of the Torah is love your neighbor as yourself. But can this extraordinary love be reduced to a commandment, even a divine commandment, considered the substance of the Torah by none other than the great Rabbi Akiva? Love your neighbor as yourself. Could there be perhaps something more to the notion of humanity having been created in the likeness of the Creator? Interestingly, there's a well-known hadith reported in the hadith collections of Ahmad ibn Hanbal and al-Bukhari, and it goes like this. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى خَلَقَ آدَمَ عَلَى سُورَتِهِ. God created Adam in his image. As you can imagine, this hadith raised some questions among the scholars of the Quran. The very well-known medieval commentator on the hadith, Yahya ibn Sharaf al-Nawawi, who his commentary on Muslim graces some of the best editions, said the following. Some scholars refrain from speculating about this hadith, saying, we believe that it is true even if it appears to be problematic. While others disagreed and required that it be reconciled with the verse from the Quran. Well, I can assure you that this proves, therefore, if nothing else, what I said earlier, that Muslims, like Jews, are prone to argue. It doesn't resolve the issue entirely, but I want to get back to the first argument between Akiva and Ben Azai. The great Rabbi Akiva, according to the Talmud, ultimately fails to triumph in the discussion, but it's not clear exactly why. Here is one explanation. Rabbi Akiva insists that we must follow the law of the Torah and love our fellows as ourselves. But for most of us, that's impossible. Unlike Dr. Hassan, we do not all have the ability to truly love everyone. Most of us are stuck in a certain smallness, a limitation of love that occasional, extraordinary people like Dr. Hassan are able to transcend. We, most of us, simply cannot always obey the divine commandment to love. Rabbi Ben Azai resolves the problem of impossibility for most of us by insisting that the core of the Torah is acknowledging the creative force in every individual. All are created in some inexplicable way, some kind of likeness to God. That requires that we acknowledge with awe the very essence of every person. So if we are unable to go so far as to love, as can only a few saintly people, such as Dr. Hassan, whom we in my tradition call tzaddikim, that is, the righteous, we still can, and therefore we must, at the very least, respect every creature because she or he was created in some way with an essence of God. In Jewish tradition, and I will end with this, when one sees an extraordinarily wise person, someone with true wisdom, which is a very rare occasion, we recite a blessing, which I recite in honor of Dr. Hassan Hatut. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan michochmato livasar vadam. Blessed and praised is God, the ruler of the universe, who granted a portion of the divine wisdom to flesh and blood. Thank you, and good evening.